My name is Travis Bailey, and I work with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources for the Center for Mollusk Conservation. And today I want to talk about the propagation of freshwater mussels in floating cages at Lake Cumberland. The Center for Mollusk Conservation is part of the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. It was established in 2002 and located in Frankfort, Kentucky. It is a flow-through facility on the Elkhorn Creek and is part of the Kentucky River system. At the Center for Mollusk Conservation, we primarily work on mussel culture and propagation, but we also culture algae. We do field surveys for fish and mussels. We do long-term monitoring on mussel beds, the restoration of mussel beds and river systems, release of hatchery-reared juveniles, translocation of rare mussels. We do some research and other research and management, and we work with other species such as hellbenders, mud puppies, and snails. And we have other branch facilities at Minor Clark Fish Hatchery in Moorhead, Kentucky, and at Lake Cumberland. Our biggest partner for the cage culture is Wolf Creek National Fish Hatchery. Wolf Creek was established in 1975. They primarily work with rainbow, brown, and brook trout. They also have imperial species conservation when they work with the endangered barren top minnows, and they're working with us through the mussel cage culture program. As you can see here, Lake Cumberland is located in Kentucky, and it's in the counties of Clinton, Laurel, McCreary, Pulaski, Russell, and Wayne. It was constructed in 1952 for flood control and hydroelectric power. It is over 65,000 acres and has over 1,200 miles of shoreline and is a oligotrophic lake. At the CMC, we produce mussels either using fish or in vitro techniques. When the mussels are ready, the juvenile mussels are collected from the fish, or they're taken out of media and placed into our grow-out trays in the greenhouse. Each one of these trays is usually stocked between 500 and 1,000 juveniles per tray. After 6 or 10 weeks of growth in the trays, the juvenile mussels, or when they're over a millimeter size, these mussels have the opportunity to be taken to the cages at Lake Cumberland, or they can remain at the CMC for grow out. And the cages, we usually stock them about 500 juveniles per cage. We also have another technique, and that is we can take our infested fish and take them to Lake Cumberland and put them in the cages themselves. We usually put about 7 to 10 fish per cage, and they are usually removed 10 to 14 days after we put them in there. Today we have 7 total racks with 35 cages between 2 floating marinas at Lake Cumberland. Each rack is about 141 inches in length and 41 inches wide and can hold 5 cages. It is held up with 2 sealed 50-gallon drums that are attached on both ends. The cages inside the racks are 36 by 24 by 18, and the sides are covered with a galvanized hardware cloth. Each cage base is 36.5 inches by 25 inches wide with about a 3-inch lip and is usually filled with small gravel and sand about 3 centimeters in depth. You can see in the pictures there, there's a picture of a cage complete kinda, and there's some of the bases on the bottom there. And we hold the base to the top of the cage with a metal bar that goes right through the middle, that goes through both the cage and the base there, and that's how they stay put in the rack itself. Here's pictures of the completed racks that are floating in the water there. We also have tied on ropes to each side of the cage with little floaties. Just makes it easier to get the ropes and pull them out when needed. There's a picture of some of our racks in the water. This is at the state dock at Lake Cumberland, and you can see we've got 2 of those racks per boat slip there. Usually each rack costs roughly about $4,000 to build, and that includes the 5 cages in it. This cost can vary depending on the aluminum and how much welding is needed. Yearly maintenance is usually really low on these guys, unless something happens to it, like a boat running into it or some bad waves come crashing into it. Sometimes they can break. Usually the only maintenance is changing the hardware cloth out every maybe 3 to 4 years and reattaching it. In 2016, we started with our first batches of mussels. We used some log perch. We infested some log perch. We took them out there with the Cumberland comb shells. And at the end of the year, we were we had over 500 juveniles. We also infested a bunch of other log perch with the fan shells and did not have any luck. That year I think we used only 10 cages. In 2017, we ramped it up a little bit. We decided to infest more log perch, some rock bass, some largemouth, and some striped darters. In that year, we actually got over 700 Cumberlandian comb shells. We had over 1,000 rainbow mussels, a couple of pink muckets, and over 50 Cumberland beans. In 2018, we went a little bigger, and we had more cages built and racks. So we decided to do 5 cages infested with fish, with pink muckets, 5 cages of pheasant shells, Cumberlandian comb shells, and then we had another 5 cages of fawn's foot, cat's paws, and Cumberland bean. And usually we stocked all these cages at 10 to 15 fish per cage. We also added some 1-month juveniles from the hatchery, both fish and in vitro derived, and we put some tan riffle shells, cat's paws, Cumberlandian comb shells, Cumberlandian beans, and round hickory nuts. That year we produced over 5,000 juveniles, 5 species that were federally endangered, with 25 cages. As you can see in the numbers, we had over 1,000 Cumberlandian comb shells, we had over 400 cat's paws, and over 3,000 Cumberland beans. And we did find out that we were able to successfully add juveniles to the cages at a month of age. Now, in 2018 and 19, we did overwinter some of the mussels for the first time, and we did overwinter them at Minor Clark Hatchery and in Lake Cumberland. We had 10 cages of Cumberland bean, we had 5 cages of purple cat's paws, we had 2 cages of the comb shells, and a cage of fluted kidney shells. Now in 2019, we added another 10 cages of mussels to the existing ones that overwintered. We were able to add another 800 Cumberlandian comb shells, 800 purple cat's paws, and over 300 fluted kidney shells. And we had 28 cages that year. And we were able to release in the end of October over 1,700 Cumberland comb shells, or Cumberland beans, excuse me. Now in 2020, it was a strange year with the old COVID going on, but we were able to do a lot of infested fish to the cages. So we put 4 cages of the snuff box, we did 6 cages of Cumberlandian comb shell, and we did 8 cages of pink muckets. And we were able to add several mussels from the hatchery out to other existing cages. We added some kidney shells, some purple cat's paws, Cumberland beans, and some rabbit's foots. But we also had a few extra mussels this year, so we decided to try a different approach, a cheaper approach maybe. So we built we had some baskets and we put some floats on them. And these baskets did have enough lips so we could put some sand and stuff on the bottom, so we didn't have to worry about the mussels crawling out. All we did was attach some noodles or styrofoam to the sides, and we floated these baskets right above the existing racks there, and we attached them with a piece of rope. We did do 2 cages of the Kentucky Creek shells, we did a cage of pink muckets, and we also did a cage of kidney shells. So at this moment now we have 35 cages of mussels in the water and 4 floating baskets. The cages and the baskets will remain in place until April or May, and at that point they will be harvested and counted and taken to the new floating mussel boathouse until we're able to release them this year. Here's just a picture of us processing some of the cages, show you what it looks like. As you can see, some of the cages are really dirty. They'll have to be taken out and pressure washed. But we do use some sieves and stuff to get the mussels separated from the gravel. It makes it a lot easier and a lot easier to count them out there. Here's a picture of the new floating boathouse that the Wolf Creek has purchased for the rearing of these mussels. I'm sure there's tons of different ideas and approaches we're going to try, but this also will allow us to attach the racks that we have either inside or outside the building. This thing is 62 foot by 44 feet, and it does have the walkways on 3 sides of it. So doing these cages at Lake Cumberland I think it has several advantages for us. Obviously, the cost is lower. There's no food, and there's very little man hours out here. There's really hardly any maintenance needed. We do send somebody out, I don't know, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks to scrub the cages and check on them, make sure nothing is broken or needs to be fixed. And that's all they have to do, really. Being in the lake, it allows us to use all the natural growing conditions of the lake and of the water and everything. And it has provided us with some really excellent growth. We've had mussels grow over 20 millimeters in 6 to 7 months, if not earlier than that. And we've had great survival, sometimes over 80%. And it also allows us to work with multiple species at once. Like I said, we could work with probably 15 to 17 species all at one time. But there is also a few disadvantages we have working here. Of course, the initial cost is really high. And boat traffic can play a part in some of these. The waves and stuff can physically damage. Boats running into them can physically damage them. And boats, if they're really close to the racks, propellers can wash out all of the gravel and the mussels out of them when they're small, of course. And of course, people could obviously steal them or damage them themselves. I would like to thank Wolf Creek National Fish Hatchery for all the work they've done on this. They've provided all the cages and all the new boathouse and all of this, some of the staff and timing that they do. We pretty much just add the mussels into this and kind of help them. We just help, work together doing all this. But we couldn't have done it without the staff here at the CMC and the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. And thank you.